Okay, we're going to go to Edius now. I'm going to get rid of a couple of these windows, and we're going to talk about Multicam Editing briefly. I'm going to show you just a basic layout of a sample program here. Um, any changes I make in this. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually create a different project. I'm going to save this project. I'm going to save this project as another project, and then I can go in, and this will be a sample for video. So now this project, everything in this can be deleted later. It won't matter. I mean, everything as far as project changes, it won't matter because I can always go back to that other project I was using earlier. This is a copy of a project I've worked on. As you can see, I have a bunch of sequences. These are actually pulled into programs in Media100. I have more than one sequence for each event because I have these stages that I may want to go back to make corrections, and sometimes Edius will cause an error, maybe due to my quick movement of stuff around and not being as careful as I should be. I don't usually have that kind of a problem with Media100. Media100 seems a little more robust and able to change things without having as much guessing. Edius is probably more powerful. The power sometimes gets in your way, all these extra features, you don't know what the heck you're doing, and you're still trying to learn it, and when you're new like me. So I'm trying to transition to Edius from Media100. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about Multicam Timeline and Edius for camera editing versus Media100. Here's a multicam timeline inside Edius, which is really not a multiple camera timeline. There's a multiple camera mode. This is a very interesting and powerful feature of Edius compared to Media100, which is any timeline can become multicam. Now the nature of this, basically, I started out, I'm going to actually go back in and show you a timeline earlier, an earlier version where I have these 4 cameras synced for this artist. I'm going to go in and I'm going to just try to edit, do a quick edit and show you how this works and how I'd end up with a a quick edit of a song by this guy. What I'm going to do actually is I'm going to mute this so you won't even hear that. You'll just hear me, and I'm going to play this in a multicam mode. Show you how we're going to go into multicam mode. I'm going to talk really briefly about the subtle differences between this and Media100. Multicam mode, I just come up here and I say multicam mode. Obviously, I also have to define what the multicam mode will show me, how many cameras I can have. I can have up to 9 with Media100. I can have up to 16 with Edius. There's a little bit more power there. I'm using a much newer system. This Edius system is a modern system, System 7, version 7, Edius 7 Pro. Media100 that I'm using is 1.13 on a 5-year-old machine, 5-year-old Media100, so it's a much older version of Media100. Yet Media100 has a lot of power. And is a little bit quicker in certain stages of editing than Edius. So I'm going to describe why, but these may be rare for most people. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say 5 cameras plus the master I want to display. And I'm going to, so that was my display mode. I'm going to go into multicam mode. It's going to show me all these cameras. It's going to show me camera 1, which I have down here, camera 2, 3, and 4. I assign them right here. With Media100, we assign them in a separate panel. We actually are doing them in a type of bin mode. They're actually clip-based. Multicams are clip-based with Media100. By the way, the sound you're hearing is I'm rendering on a Mac in the background with this laptop, my other presentation. So if you hear this noise fan in the background, it's from that laptop running. So we have with Media100, I'm sorry, we're talking about Edius now. So what we're going to do is I'm going to just play this, and this has become, basically this timeline has turned into a multicam timeline. Very powerful. I see all the angles. I see the long takes for each angle. It's very nice. A typical multi-camera, I have a long video feed from each camera. The audio bed is going to be below, and I'm only going to be concerned with the video. With one other difference between Media100 and Edius I want to bring up is that with Edius, whatever I switch up here, it's based on a preference preset. So I'm either switching video and audio or video alone based on that preference. Separately with Media100, I can, while switching, I can switch just the video or the video and the audio by just pressing a key. So I have a little more flexibility in switching decisions live with Media100. Doesn't matter that much, but it is a feature that Media100 has. With Edius, I can see with the little outline which camera selected, and I can also see in the master what camera selected. With Media100, I basically look for the outline and use one monitor. That's how I use it most of the time. So I'm just going to hit play here, and we're going to start selecting camera angles. Now notice I'm selecting a camera angle. As I do, we see a little take mark up here on the timeline, and that camera angle appears up here. So let's see, I want to see him playing close up, and then go back to the wide shot, then him and the drummer, then back to him and the guitar. It's just mostly the guitar right now. So I have these shots of the guy, the performer. So I've just added a few clips in here. All right. And he's gonna sing a bit. So I'll get a shot of the drummer, and then both him and the drummer, then a close-up of him singing, another shot of the drummer, back to him. So okay, all right. So I've done this quick edit. Now I'm gonna go in and look at the edit. Let me zoom in a bit. I'll come in here and zoom. Pretty quick. So all my edits have appeared in the timeline. When I was making a change while it was playing, this is a track-based mode. This is important. I'm kind of talking as a programmer, processing behind the scenes. I want to just bring this up, that this is in multi-camera mode. When I hit play, this is in a track-based mode. It's recording whatever I'm doing. There's no separate record button as there would be in like Premiere. So, and Media100 doesn't have one either. So we're in a track-based mode, and we're making the adjustments right away. This is track-based. It's the result. It's been printed to the timeline. It's not. There's no track-based changes that are happening down here immediately. Up here, when I move the mouse up here, it goes into a track-based mode. There's a difference in these two modes of what this timeline's doing and what this track-based mode is doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to want to insert a camera angle. Let me zoom in closer. I want to insert a different camera angle right here. Let's say I want to go back to him. All right, well, I'm going to do that. I'm going to hit play to do that. Hit insert, and I'm going to hit pause. Now I've just inserted him in that position halfway through by doing it up here in the track. Now let's say I want to insert a cutaway back to this camera 2 right here. But I'm going to do it while it's paused. I'm going to click this right now and do it while it's paused. Now let's see if this is going to insert a cut to this channel right here. It didn't. It didn't insert it because this isn't track based. It's not in a mode where it's going to insert, or I should say it's not an insert based cut. The insert only happens when I'm playing up here. So if I want to add camera angles quickly in a multicam playing situation, I want to click them up here while it's playing, not down here while it's paused. Media100 treats these the same. It inserts the new camera angle. If I want to do this, if I want to completely change that camera take, I have to press another key in the Media100 keyboard when I click down here. So Media100 has a subtle difference. There's also another subtle difference in their track-based multicam architecture for Media100, and that is, I'm going to reposition myself here. I'm kneeling next to the computer here as I'm editing. So let me undo that. So I'm going to still have these two cuts, and I can go over here. I can rubber band to this and change the camera angle. So if I want to go back, let's say I want to go to this other camera angle. I can do that here. So I can rubber band and change, but if I want to insert something from the timeline, this isn't, excuse me, I have to go back here. This isn't a track-based time. This isn't a track-based timeline. This is a clip-based timeline. It's more like a clip-based timeline. So this is showing me it's in a multicam mode, but it's clip-based. So if I want to insert another take here, I have to come up, click cut, and then insert the new take. Sorry, let me undo that. It's not cut. I have to say add cut point. Sorry about that. So there is I think I just did it. I don't even know if I did it. There's a way to do it. I may have to be out of the mode to do it actually. Hang on a minute. There is a way to do it. I've done it before, but I can't recall at the moment. Hang on a minute. Add cut point. I'll just say add cut point to all tracks. So I just added a cut point. Actually, it moved a cut point all the way through the whole thing. So I have to add a cut point to all tracks. Now that I'm there, so I want to insert that angle. I can insert that angle, and now I've changed it. So there's this other extra step here. With Media100, I instantly can insert. Now the question is, are you going to do more inserts, or are you going to do more changes and completely change the camera? You know, it's basically you have to do it when you're playing or stopped with this. But with Media100, you do inserts all the time. I can also, I mean, with Media100, I can go in and select a different track too. So it's fairly quick. I think it's a little quicker with Media100 than with Edius in that point. Now let's go to another thing that I want to mention that is a difference between the two, and that is I've made all my changes, and I found out after I've made all my changes that one of these tracks is slightly out of sync. It's slightly off by a couple frames. It's not quite lined up with the video. How do I solve that with Edius? Well, the way I would think that I would solve that naturally, having worked for the Media100 system, is I would select the track. So I would come up here and I would say select. Actually, I would actually just select the track and say Control A to select the entire track. And let's say I have to drag it a couple frames over. I'd just drag it a couple frames, and all my in points and out points would be the same, right? They would, and the track would slightly move underneath. I'd slip the video to match the audio on the track and make my change. That's how we do it in Media100 on the Media100 Multicam Timeline. But what happens is when we do it on Edius, what we find is gaps in the timeline. So what we have, instead of having a take up here, as you can see up here at the top, the take disappears and a blank space appears because I've actually slid this away. It's already applied the takes that I did in the track-based mode. These, I think of these as take transitions on a keyer, or on a switcher, I should say, not on a keyer, on a switcher. So this is acting like a switcher, and I'm doing a take. And while it's running, while it's in the play mode, it's taking those, it's applying those takes directly to the timeline, but it's applying them with each one to the timeline, and there's gaps now on the timeline. So if I go back down to the timeline and try to slide the video to get a better sync, if I'm off a couple frames on one of the camera, I didn't do the sync all correct up front. You better do it all up front right with Edius. Now I've opened up my timeline, and my original decisions, they've already been applied, and they've already been trimmed. The nature that I would think to be more natural, especially from a switcher-based setup, if I was thinking from a switcher-based setup and a track-based timeline that was tied to switchers, a switcher, like each one of these is a camera, I want to change the timing of the underlying cameras and keep the very basic edit of this multiple camera shoot. I want these marks to stay the same, and I don't want to have all these gaps up here and have to go in and adjust them. Now I got to come in here and I got to make adjustments for all the in and out points to get rid of all these gaps. Well, that's a lot of extra time just to retime and slip the video track. Some people mention this on the Edius forum, and they're like, well, why would you want to do that? Why would you? Well, it's more flexible. It's more flexible later on in the process to go in and do that without having this timeline completely corrupted. It's not really corrupted. It's just the timeline has become, what can I say? The timeline has changed because all these takes were applied to it and all these gaps are there. But the nature of all this is it's one continuous clip for each camera. I don't want to change the takes that the general nature of the takes. I just want to slip the video slightly. We need a third way to set up this track, this timeline, like an intermediate track that can be applied to the timeline, kind of like Media100's intermediate multicam mode. If we had that kind of a switcher-based mode, we could make timing changes very quickly, and it wouldn't affect our basic edit decision for the cameras. But that's like a third way of thinking about it. So there's actually 3 phases of editing in Media100. slightly less flexible because I can add cameras here, select them as a camera, add all these camera angles. I can see all the angles from the source timeline. So this is more powerful from Edius, but it's a little bit more constrained for that one particular strange instance. So when you sync up everything, you better have it all synced up ahead of time with Edius. That's why this here, that's why I keep a timeline. I have my edit timeline, but I have my original timeline with all the cameras. This is usually not changed. This is changed now, but I usually don't have it changed. So I do these different sequences because I want to be able to backtrack. Now the problem is if I want to backtrack, in all these cuts, I removed them all, I would have to recut anyways. So there's kind of an issue here if I have to there's an issue compared to Media100. So it's a minor point, but it's an important one. Media100 is simpler to use also in some other ways too. So now let's go out of that. Let's go back to let's go to another cut of the same demo, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to go out of. You have to go out of multicam mode. You really have to do that with Media100 too. Media100 you have to do a couple extra steps to get to this mode, but it's automatically applied in Edius. And now I come in and I want to take this cut and I want to make it into a transition. I want to have it turn into a transition, say a dissolve or something. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to select something like a dissolve. This isn't a dissolve, but let's see if I can find it very quickly. I can easily find it too. Here it is. So I'm going to add this dissolve to here. So to add the dissolve, I just drag it down here over the transition, right, or something. No, it's I have to actually select each clip. So let's see how quick this is, how fast this is. First I click on the clip, then I hold the shift key, and then I click on the other clip. So now I've selected both these clips. Then I come up and I grab the dissolve transition, and I drag it down over the two clips, and I release it. And now I have a cross dissolve between one clip and the other. And actually I just did it in the multicam mode, and it did it to more than one clip. So let me turn off multicam. See what I did. It did that cross dissolve right. It created another one. Did some weird stuff to that, so I'm going to undo it. Alright, so I'm not sure. Maybe this was already there from earlier. But I'm trying to add a dissolve here, so let's go back. We'll put the dissolve here. We'll just come over here to do it. So I select one clip. So that's one click, shift, that's two things I've done. Now I'm touching the keyboard. Third click, 3. Fourth click, grab, drag. So it's 5 steps. Alright, and I create a cross dissolve. So it's 5 steps that I have to do to create a cross dissolve. If I do it wrong, like over here, by the way, this was added. I didn't even want to add it. Okay, it added this. That wasn't there earlier. And look what it's done. It's added it. It thinks I'm doing a multiple request of clips because I selected those two and I didn't want to do that. So that's a bug I found too with Edius, which is kind of confusing. And how do I get rid of this transition here? I got to look it up. I don't even still know how. All right, I've used it for like a week. So, but this here is going to fade down. Anyways, it's just some of these added clips don't quite work right. They're not always a pure cross dissolve. So, anyways, I kind of lost track of what it was doing. So, anyways, that's the quick thing. So the transitions, adding transitions, I can add a transition to a bunch of clips. I can lasso them and add it all, But usually I'm adding a couple transitions here and there. I'm just doing it manually. And to do that with Media100, basically, I have to actually expand out the clip, but I'm not going to talk about that much. That's going to be in another video sample. Now, also the clips, the transitions that happen, they go back and they use part of the out point and part of the in point. So the center part of that transition is where your cut point is. With Media100, it's from the cut point forward usually. You usually drag out the other video, whatever the other video is. You drag it underneath and you double click, and then you hit apply, and it automatically selects your last transition. So you do move up here, but you do it with just a hidden apply button, and you just do a double click, but you have to prepare the clip first. So you have to do a drag. It would seem like it's a little bit quicker with Media100 in doing it than this. And it's usually you have your hand on the mouse. You're not having to reach up and hit the shift on the keyboard. It sounds like a minor difference in editing speed, and it is, but when you add a bunch of transitions, it does make it a little quicker in Media100 to add transitions from cuts. A little bit more, it seems a little bit more graphical than this. So that's it. I'm going to stop right now with that. That's some of the differences in the two with Multicam. There's a little bit difference in design and processing, and a little bit difference in adding transitions. When I get done with all this, another thing I ran into with one of my programs earlier, and maybe there's a way around that, but I went to add a title in here, and the title, I never have a problem with that with Media100. I went to add a title, and I added the title, and it tried to throw the title in one of the video channels, and it did a ripple delete, some kind of a weird ripple delete thing, and deleted up some of the clips. So what I do is I don't even add any titles when I'm adding my transitions or doing my fine-tuning of my Multicam timeline. I actually export the entire thing out with no titles, and then bring it back in as one continuous clip and add the title in. So that's what I end up doing now, which is kind of, having to add more programs to get around bugs that seem to crop up randomly is a little bit of a headache, and it kind of slows you down a bit. So I'd say that's my quick review of Edius. Now there might be some things I need to learn, some minor things that I'm not doing correctly. Other thing with Edius is maybe it's due to the density of the screen, but all the icons and all the little buttons and everything are very, very small, hard to read, and it almost doesn't matter. I was on a 32-inch monitor TV, used it as a big desktop, and it was still difficult to read. So those are my differences right now, and I'll finish this video, stop it from recording.